Before we jump into this episode, I want to remind you that while Caitlin and Sophia are dietitians, we're not your dietitians. This means the information shared in the Food Freedom Fertility podcast is intended to entertain, educate, and inform. It is not a substitute for medical care. This information is not intended to diagnose, manage, or treat disease. Always consult with your doctor before making any changes.
Hey there, I'm Kaylee Hunt, the Food Freedom Fertility's podcast editor. This week we will be re-releasing an older episode that was a fan favorite. This episode was a favorite because it talks about becoming a mom on purpose. This episode is also one of my favorites because at the time of release, I was in the deep trenches of trying to conceive, and hearing all the reasons why women are trying to become a mom on purpose validated my feelings. Thank you all for listening and enjoy the episode.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Food Freedom Fertility. We are your hosts, Sophia Pavia and Caitlin Johnson, both registered dietitians, both specializing in fertility and women's health, and both here because we just love you. And this is our favorite.
It is our favorite. You and we like each other. It's just fun to hang out.
We do like each other. It's
basically
almost
when we
hard
hang out
to record an episode. It's almost hard to record an episode and not just be like, oh my gosh, I have to tell you what happened at Costco today, or, whatever we've got going on in our lives.
By the way, since you said Costco, I have this friend that lives 2 doors down that she's now my, we go to the pool together friend, and her kids are a little bit older, and we were at the pool and I was like, hey, I think if I need to go to Costco, I think I'm going to tell my kids we're going to go get hot dogs at Costco for lunch. And then we'll, it'll be easy to get them out of the pool. Extract them, as it were. And she's like, oh, great, we'll come with you. Let's go home and change, and then we'll carpool to Costco. So we get to Costco. We're a hot mess. We in the eating area, we spill a bunch of things. We're just like that couple with a bunch of kids. But anyway, we're walking through Costco. This is a month ago now. And we're like moms that don't give an F. Because we get to this section, she's like, oh my gosh, I love those 4th of July plates, but they're in this saran wrapped 400 times, halfway up. They're not open and on display. There's no pricing. It's the back stock of it. But we walk all around the paper plates and plastic silverware section, and we can't find them. And I'm like, all right, well, F it. Let's open up the saran wrap thing. So takes us 2 minutes to get through all the layers of saran wrap, extract this huge 500 stack paper plate, 4th of July, huge plates that it will take her 10 years to get through. And this lady's walking by and she's like, you guys, I just love that you're just taking charge and getting those. Do you mind getting me one down too? And I'm like, yeah, girl, I'll get you one down. So I get it down. And at that point we were done at Costco. I'm going to take my kids home. She's going to keep perusing, because I was telling her how my husband and I don't really walk the aisles at Costco. We go in for what we need and we leave so that we don't spend $400. And anyway, as I'm walking out a different way than she is, there is the 4th of July plates. We were the assholes that opened up the back stock. And here's this just beautiful display of them. So I had my daughter pose in front of them. And I was like, you know what though? We are moms in charge. We're at Costco. We're spilling stuff. We don't care. We're opening things that shouldn't be open. We don't care. It's just one of those moments where I was like, this is very much a Caitlin Hughes, which is my maiden name. This is something my dad would have done. If he wanted that, he would have just opened it up and taken it.
That's so funny. Man, my husband would so not be like that at all. He'd be like, you're going to ruin, but look how beautifully sealed it is in plastic. It's almost like it's in a Ziploc bag.
Oh my God. Yeah, somebody's going to get you in trouble. I'm like, who? If somebody just walked by, they'd be like, hey, girls, 2 rows up at the end of the aisle, there's a whole display of 4th of July stuff.
Or the employee could be like, oh, we can't have you guys doing that. It's our policy, whatever. Let me do it for you. Right. Or let me grab you this. It's over here.
Yeah.
But that would mean that there'd have to be adequate staffing at the Costco. And that is quite an issue these days, is getting places staffed up.
And I'm just not going to go there. People don't need to hear about my shopping.
Welcome to the Costco episode of Food Freedom Fertility. This is Food Freedom Costco.
Oh man, so funny. Anyway, what are we going to talk about today, Sophia?
So today I've just really had something on my heart, y'all. And I've made a couple posts about it on Instagram and I get a little shade for it here and there, but I just want to do an episode dedicated to why try to conceive?
Mm-hmm.
Why become a mom on purpose? Why is this valuable? Why is this, in some ways, in my opinion, superior to being a mom by surprise or sort of like falling pregnant and being like, oh crap, this is what my life is going to be now. I have to try to figure it out. Why is it valuable to want to be a mom? Why is it valuable to actually try and to put effort into this? Because there is so much value in it, and our culture will not show it to you, and they will tell you that if it's meant to be, it's going to just flop into your lap. Otherwise, it's
a funny word.
It's dumb to try. Yeah. And there's even people out there, there's a huge anti-natalist movement talking about how it is a terrible idea for anyone to have a child at any time. And we should be doing all these drastic things to make sure no more babies are born. And I think that that's a bunch of crap. Yeah. And I think that your desire to be a mom is not only valid, but it's beautiful,
and
important, and honorable, and a very high calling. And so that's what we're going to talk about today, so that you can kind of have some armor when people are like saying dumb stuff about you trying to conceive.
Yeah. And what else are we going to talk about?
I don't think it's dumb at all.
Almost 4th of July as we're recording this. It's going to be near 4th of July when we release it, which is our 2-year anniversary.
I can't believe we've been doing this for 2 years.
Sophia and I and you have come along for the ride for 2 years, but really it feels like 3 years because it was like a project for about a year before it actually hit the live airwaves.
It took a long time for us to get our wheels up on this.
No, but look, we're like 80-something episodes into this now, and it's so much
Hundreds of 5-star reviews.
Yes.
Thank you very much to everyone listening.
Yes.
And the reviews and the ratings, as much as they pat Caitlin and I on the back and make us feel like our hard work is worth something, the true value there is it helps other people find us. It prioritizes us in either Spotify or Stitcher or Apple or wherever you're listening. It sort of bumps us up in the algorithm to where when someone starts typing in something
like
to search
fertility,
or is on their homepage,
nutrition and fertility,
helps them find us. And that's why we do this, is because we want you to be able to find us. We want you to get the help you need.
Yeah.
And we want you to become a mom on purpose. And that's why we're doing this episode.
Totally. And so like in our podcast world, a couple things have changed since our last anniversary. We've kind of moved to a season model, which we're coming up to the end of our first season since we've done that. This is basically like the bookend episode, I think. And we'll be back in the fall with our next set of recordings ready for you. And if that makes you sad, like go back and re-listen to episodes that were really helpful to you. And, maybe pare it down to things that may feel actionable to you, or you need a little bit more inspiration or healing or community around. Like if you feel alone after a loss, go listen to the pregnancy loss episodes. If you feel like you don't know what to do now that you're pregnant, go review the You're Pregnant Now What episodes. If you don't know what to do in the kitchen, we just did some great episodes you could re-listen to about how to kind of rethink things in your kitchen and upgrade things. Like there's so much valuable information, and listening to something on repeat actually has a lot of value because you hear different things. It's kind of like the scripture. It's like you read it one time, you get something out of it. You read it another time and you might get something completely different out of it. And that may be because you're in a different place in your life or you've experienced something differently, especially with fertility. You may have started listening to this before you ever did any changes in the kitchen or took a medication, but now you've done 3 IUIs and you're in a different place than you were maybe when you first listened to an episode. So you may get something out of it just repeating.
Yep, exactly. And there's so many episodes about having conversations with family during holidays, and 4th of July is coming up. Maybe that's a big holiday for your family. You might want to re-listen to that one. And just so much stuff, because we just do things as we think of them or we see people having these issues, but we all face different things at different times. And it could have been that when you were listening to the sperm quality episode, you had no idea whether or not that was even a part of your journey. But now that you guys have done some more testing and are further down the road, you see that working on semen quality is actually really necessary for you guys. And so you could start re-listening to those kinds of things, or give them to your husband so that they can come on when he's at the gym. That is still my favorite. When I see people from my husband's work who are hanging out and they're like, oh yeah, that's your podcast. I always think about how hilarious that is, that these guys working out in an all men's gym in like a super high speed, high performance area where everyone's like jacked and huge and super fast and very athletic. And it's like, welcome to another episode of Food Freedom Fertility. So fallopian tube, vaginal secretions. I love that.
Well, so
awkward humor is my jam, y'all.
And you bring so much to the table with it. Well, before we get into like becoming a mom on purpose, I think you just came up with a good idea of something that you and I could chat about, is like a favorite moment on the show. So that's like a favorite kind of funny, yeah, girl that we've celebrated. But is there like an episode that really stuck out to you that was helpful in your journey, or, it really spoke to people, or just was fun to record? Is there anything that comes to mind?
Gosh, there are so many things. We've had so many episodes that I like walk away from just glowing, where I feel like that was so beautiful and so wonderful and so fun. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think, I don't know if I can say this on the air. I don't know if I can, if you want people to remember this.
Go for it. Open book.
Okay. So when we were talking to Blodgett Dental Care, Dr. Blodgett.
Oh,
and
we weren't even recording yet.
Were we not recording?
No, it's not even on the
maybe
episode.
We shouldn't. Oh no. Well, I don't even remember the context, but what I remember was how hard you made him laugh, because
I do remember the context. Do we even want to go there? We're going to get so much backlash.
That's why I said I don't. I think we have to at this point, because we've been talking about
Dr. Kelly Blodgett, which is a funny name for a man, but I love it. It's very Irish, actually.
It very fits into the context of what we're about to say here.
So, Sophia and I are Christian, and yet I think a lot of people would put us kind of on the edge of like, maybe not you, but maybe me, like more of a liberal Christian view. But
I'd say we're both pretty like moderate. There's some things where we're pretty traditional Christian about, and other things where we're like,
I just said asshole in an episode. Good. Like, of course. Yeah,
exactly.
So, we use this program to record, and in the program, when you sign on, you just type your name, so that when you have guests on and stuff, like you can look at the other person's name and remember what their name is. And so overnight one time, all of a sudden it was name and pronoun. So, I could type in like Caitlin, she, her, it, their, whatever, pronoun I might subscribe to.
Any of the 27 pronouns that are now approved.
Sophia and I have used this field as a way to like make each other giggle or laugh, or, and it's funny because actually when you download the audio recordings, it comes out. So it's like Caitlin, breastfeeding mom, or Caitlin,
or like,
can't remember words today.
Sophia freaking grouch today.
Yeah. Like whatever
Caitlin's so tired or whatever it is.
So we've used it that way. So then, Dr. Kelly Blodgett comes on, and he is from Portland, very progressive, he's in functional medicine. It's you kind of like expect a certain worldview when you kind of talk to somebody like him. And he comes on, and we were talking about, I forget the exact comment it was, but basically it was like, Sophia asked, what do you want us to call you today? Dr. Kelly Blodgett? Do you want us to call you Dr. Kelly? And I was like, yeah, Dr. Blodgett, give us our pronoun or something like that. And it just turned into this hilarious
You said something about like people that are confused about their gender.
No. This is what it was. You were like, so like, should we call you Dr. Kelly Blodgett, like a natural dentist? What does that even mean? Like, what's your title? How do you differentiate yourself? And I go, yeah, what's your pronoun? And he started laughing because he's in the midst of the sea of everyone like choosing their not funny, their actual pronouns. And he was like, oh, I'm so glad you guys are like on this side of the conversation where you look at it and you go, this is a little crazy. It's like just a little bit extra. And we laugh so hard. Yeah. Now that I'm telling the story, it doesn't seem as funny, but
it was funny at the time.
Really funny.
Okay. But it was unexpected Caitlin humor. I didn't realize it didn't get recorded. So here we are telling a story that you all know nothing about and probably whatever. Thanks for wasting 4 minutes of my life just now with the story. Okay, well, it was so long and wasn't
maybe
really
it was a stupid question.
It was funny to us, okay?
Oh man. Sometimes we come on here and we're like, we're going to give you the best information today, but we're like, oh man, what's going on in our lives?
So Caitlin, what's one of your highlight moments?
I would say one that like really stuck out to me was having Dr. Sheila Gregoire. Is that how you say her name? The sex therapist lady.
I love her. Yes, we got to have her again because her book came out. She said she'd come back on when she released The Great Sex Rescue, and she did. Oh, okay, we got to get her.
Yeah, it was. I think what struck me about it was like there were questions we asked her that I expected her to answer like a completely different way, and it's like, well, what would you say to somebody that's like really trying to have pleasurable sex, but it's in their fertile window? And she was like, there are different reasons to have sex, to procreate, to be intimate, to da-da-da-da. And she's like, it's okay sometimes if sex is just for procreation. It's okay to just like get it in there, get the semen there. Like it doesn't have to be this mind-blowing sex for everyone. And I was expecting her to come at the other end of it because she's very pro female
loved that.
Pleasure, female reaching orgasm, this thing she keeps calling like the 47-point orgasm gap, where men think their partner is orgasming this amount of time and women actually report this and how big of a gap that is and yada, yada. Anyway, that episode was really kind of humbling to me and how little I know about helping people with this particular part of fertility and intimacy and to like really leave it to the experts. Like maybe I have a pearl of wisdom here and there, but like this is not my expertise. And I've been listening to this other podcast lately about motherhood, but they did a topic on intimacy and the husband and wife relationships. And they brought on this gal named Francie Winslow. And it was awesome. So it's made me think maybe we should have her on too, because I think this is a topic that is a really hard thing for a lot of people. And
a lot of shame, and not even just when you're trying to conceive, even if you're not ashamed, like let's say you're not ashamed, but you're like, okay, well, this is where I'm starting to realize, no, I really don't have orgasms. And yeah, it is sort of uncomfortable, even painful at times. And no, I don't feel like I'm ever really in the mood, but to schedule one more appointment for one more thing and have one more whatever that I have to be working on is just like, this is just not a priority in my life because I just have no energy.
Totally. And so in this episode I just listened to, she kind of addressed that a little bit in that, like that comes from a very Christian narrative that sex is to pleasure men and that women and wives are there to serve. Like, women need emotional love and support and men need physical pleasure, and that's really wrong and not right. And like the way our bodies are designed, women have way more erogenous zones on our bodies and ways to feel pleasure. And that what really for most men excites them is actually pleasuring their partner, and how it can be a really beautiful thing. And for women to have one more thing on the list and, oh no, I need to have sex tonight, or that idea that Sheila gave us and talked about that women have been told you have to have sex at least 3 times a week to keep your husband from straying from you. Francie kind of addresses that
or any other horrible sins that people commit, that they blame the fact that you're not having sex, that your husband is, that is having any litany of terrible sin issues down to like abusing children or
Right.
whatever. Oh, it's
You
because you're
didn't-
not having enough sex with
Totally.
your husband, which is just a pernicious lie from the pit of
Yes,
hell.
absolutely. So she kind of addresses it as like, well, if your sexual relationship really honored you and how God made you, that you have all these erogenous zones and that husbands and wives should be coming together and really enjoying sex and having respite and rest and release and really intimacy. And that intimacy can be independent of sex too. Like it isn't just a, erection, insertion, ejaculation, it's over.
Penetration.
That there's so much more that can be sweet about it. And then she even discussed this idea of like that coffee pot tenderness in the morning. And like, I really related to that. Like after a night of really intimate, wonderful sex with my husband, the next morning, I feel so much closer to him. I feel so much more tender towards him. And not that I'm more in love with him, but it's almost like those feelings flutter up inside of me.
They're like up on the surface.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Whereas they might be a little subdued when it's been a while since we've had moments like that. And so her point of, you're too tired. Oh, you have a headache, like all these excuses women have. If she looked forward to the evenings in a way that like, wow, my husband's really going to take care of me and pleasure me, and this is going to be this really great time, you might plan for it in a different way because it's like, you're looking for that calm, that sweet, that ecstasy almost versus this is just one more thing on my to-do list before I can actually close my eyes tonight. And I thought that was really beautiful and a good reframe.
I loved that too. And I loved what she said. I've thought about this probably 100 times since then when I asked her, because we asked her about a lot of various things that people, especially in trying to conceive and Christian worlds, believe about sex, like certain things, like there are certain positions or sex acts that are bad or wrong, or there are certain things like bringing in toys or lube or other things that aren't just your two bodies that are maybe not good or are good or whatever. And one of the things that came up was pornography. And her statement about porn was just
mind-blowing,
so simple and so profound, where she was like, well, if we're watching people perform on camera for money, and when we look at what is really happening to them and what would happen to them like financially and such if they didn't do this performance, and when we look at their history of abuse and what this industry does and what's almost all of them have had happen to them at their various stages of their childhood and life and stuff, is this actually consent? Like, is that really consent when we're having, it's almost like the prostitute and the pimp. The prostitute doesn't have a gun to her head at that moment when she's going to meet with her John, but how much consent is really involved when this is truly for her survival? And then if she wasn't to do it, what would happen to her? And it's so much coercion. And I should go back and listen to the episode because she phrases it in like 10 words and it's so articulate and amazing.
She talks about it all the time.
But it really helped me see what that is because, I get it. Like when you're trying to conceive and you guys are just trying to get it up for each other to make a baby, like you start sort of looking at what else could we be doing? What else,
How do
maybe
we should be
watching something or reading something or looking at some pictures or whatever to try to get ourselves in the mood so that we actually want to do this. I thought that was a very poignant thing. And I've actually started looking a lot more into what is porn?
Right.
What are we doing?
Yeah.
And I started following an account called Fight the New Drug. And it looks at porn as a drug. It's a non-religious affiliated nonprofit about what it does to your brain, what it does to your body, and what it does to the people, the performers, and the industry itself. And it's been very illuminating because a lot of places that talk out about the harm that various sexual practices can have are either deeply religiously affiliated or have very little traction behind them. And their arguments are maybe not all that cogent because it's like, oh, well, the Lord doesn't want you doing these things because of these verses in the Quran or whatever.
And it's interesting. We even almost use it as like slapstick humor because it's true. Like, oh, well, when your partner needs to go in for a semen analysis, you're going to see these like crisp, crackly, old 1990s.
Hustler magazine.
And it's like we joke about it, but you know, it is like a slippery slope where that's okay, but what's not okay and where's the line? And
I know. And then it just, when you bring humanity to it, and like, could you imagine if you were working in the industry back in 1999 and here you are trying to go to this urologist, and just how embarrassing and painful that would be to see this sitting there and that everyone's using and looking at. And it's just, to me, it seems like wildly unprofessional to have those kinds of materials at a medical office.
Yeah.
Now that I like, after looking back on it, like at the time it was like funny and like, of course this would be here. But now I'm like, that is actually really not cool.
And some offices even have straight up porn. Like there's a video and a screen and like, you know, and now smartphones, you can do anything on your phone.
And I think it's different from like, I'm going to this office, I'm choosing to view these things on my device versus
it's
like
provided for you.
I'm going to the medical office and here is this thing right here, whether I want it or not, and whether I'm connected to it or whether I was even in this film. They don't care. They don't know. This is just, here we are.
Yeah. So we have gone far from our original topic, but that's an episode I would listen to again myself even. And we've had some really great, amazing guests on, and we have some ideas and guests lined up for next season, but we're also going to kind of try to get back to some really good episodes of just plain old Sophia and I and give it to you real.
Okay. Can we talk about, Caitlin, looking back, what was your like worst cringe moment?
Of
Do you
the
have
whole
one?
Series or just in the last year?
Anything you want, no rules.
Man, I feel like if you really go back to episodes like 1 through 3, actually episode 1, if you're just in it to like get to know our personalities, is pretty funny. We don't know what the hell we're doing. And basically it's like a love novel. It's like how Sophia fell in love with Louis, how Caitlin fell in love with BJ and peed on him on her first date. That's actually kind of interesting to me. But I just really think like anything episode 1 through 10 is like, I don't even want to listen to it. It's like scary.
I know. That's how I feel about the Lily Nichols episodes. I was so immature as a podcast host. I didn't know what I was doing. It was sort of a last minute thing that I would have to be recording by myself.
A
which
little
I had never done
because Lily's so awesome.
Oh my God. I was just going on and on about who cares what. It's
wrote
worst.
reviews based on that one episode that I'm like, man, just give us a shot. Like it doesn't need to be.
No, give me a chance.
Yeah.
Give me a chance as I'm new at this and I don't know what I'm doing. Yeah. And it was very hard for me at the beginning to sort of step out of performance mode
and be
like feeling like I had to sort of have a on mic personality or something instead of just being. This can be really hard to do, is like how to just sort of be yourself and have your own thoughts in front of an audience. But here we are now. Yeah, that was my lowest moment in the podcast world. Like so embarrassed I can't even bring myself to
go back and listen to them. Well, for those of you that binge, I don't know if I would do it from 1 to 80, whatever we're on, or if I'd go backwards, but
just look at the topics. Okay. Like, is this topic what I want? And if there's information that you need on that topic, then go for it. But if you're just
Sophia and I have also gotten better at communicating. I remember at the very beginning, it was like, we'd take turns kind of getting ready for an episode. And I was like, okay, we're going to do an episode on egg quality. And we show up, Sophia's like, we're going to talk about free range eggs. organic eggs,
What's the
pasture
difference
eggs.
between
And I was like,
cage-free, free
no,
range?
like follicle, like how do we improve it?
Oh my gosh.
It's like,
horrible.
We've gotten better at communicating directly. And I will say, people don't see the back end of our friendship as much, but I feel like this has been so wonderful and really has just deepened our friendship. I think a lot of people could go into a project like this and be like 2 years in, okay, bounce. Like,
yeah, or it really dragging up a lot of things. And there have been things, listeners, like Caitlin and I have both really matured through this, like as business owners, as friends, as mothers, I became a mom since we've been recording this podcast. And there
have been high moments, low moments, everything in between. But I'm proud of us that I feel like it's built like you can't break the type of friendship we have now. As different as we are.
I totally agree. And we've learned, I think part of it is because we've had issues where we both sort of fall into our own fallen nature, where like Caitlin becomes like the manager, school teacher, sort of like, I'll get it done. Here are your tasks, report to me. And I easily fall into like the little sister role where I'm like, you tell me what to do. And just how unhealthy that was at times for both of us and how much anxiety it caused both of us. And then for both of us to sort of come out of that and be like, okay, I'm finding myself being my worst self when it comes to this. I'm doing all the things that I work with my therapist to not do. And we need to change this. And both of us coming to it humbly and being like, all right, you are right. I have been doing that and I don't want to do that anymore. Let's make a plan to make this different instead of just being like, I don't know. I don't really want to do this podcast anymore because she's doing these things, but I want to spare our friendship and I don't want to say anything about it. And so I'm just going to kind of let it fester until I can't stand it anymore. And then I'm just going to say, actually, I've sort of started my other podcast with this other person. And I think I'm mostly going to be doing that now.
Yeah, I think that's a testament to women can be so much more than what the world gives us credit for. There's this whole movement right now, which could be a good segue into becoming a mom on purpose, where it's like, hey, women support women. Don't talk down to women. Don't be in competition with women. Don't la, 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 la. And I think like a really good friendship can overcome anything when you both look at it and go, I want to be loving to this person. Like, whether you're talking about two women or a husband and wife, or like, I'm going to, in honor, prefer this person. I'm going to make strides to help them. I'm going to be supportive of them.
Be yielding on insignificant matters.
Like when it doesn't matter, just go like, okay, F it. Or, like we've had episodes where we've been recording. One of us gets a message from somebody in our family that something crazy sad has happened. And we're like, okay, we're going to stop this recording and we'll come back to it. And what can we do to support you right now? Like we've been through a lot of things like that are totally behind the scenes that you've never heard of. And I think that there is something to be said about really supporting women. And I loved your post the other day about like, I'm pregnant with a baby girl. Like my life is about raising women and supporting women. And I think that our friendship as two women rising above the cattiness that oftentimes gets like pressed upon as the most important thing about girls, mean girls, yada, yada. I think that may be what draws some people to us is that we don't do that. We don't play that game.
Yeah, it really is so true. And how much easier it is to be humble towards someone that you know loves you.
Right.
That you don't have to try to argue with anything. Because that's been something that's come up. Like Caitlin has had things happen, or I've had things happen, or I've had to be like, Caitlin, this isn't working. Or she's been like, Sophia, this isn't working. Or I've actually been really hurt by when you did this or that, or said this or that. And coming at that as, instead of being like, Caitlin's telling me I did something wrong, taking that as, my friend is hurt. And like whether or not I did it or someone else did it, or it was my fault or it wasn't, or here are my reasons, and whatever it is, let's just boil this down to someone I love is hurting right now. Let's see how we can fix that. And if a part of that, is me explaining, hey, that was really not my intention. This is what I was trying to do. And then she's like, oh my gosh, I thought you just didn't care. And we're doing this and that. And it resolves it right there.
Right.
Or whether an explanation will only make it worse. And you have to just be like, okay,
How do we move forward?
Whatever my reasons were, the way that you experience that is not how I want you feeling when we work together. So I want to change that starting right now. But coming together with that sort of heart that like, I love Caitlin. Caitlin loves me. She is not attacking me when she's saying something needs to change. She's not blaming me even when something I did is what needs to change. She wants this relationship to work and I want it to work too. And we both value each other. So let's start there.
And I think too, you've had a lot of in your life where people have been like, rah, rah, you're terrible. I'm just no longer going to be your friend. And I really had to show you, I think like, hey, things are going to come up, especially if we choose to like do some business things together. And I'm never going to value the business more important than I value you as a friend. And I'm not just going to cut and run. And that's just not how I work. And I will not do that to you. And like creating safety in that space, I think there's a lot that a lot of people could learn from choosing to value a person over whatever the thing is, a thing, something you want to purchase, a goal that you have in common with a friend or a partner. Like the person is more important. Like I said to Fiona the other day, she knocked food on the floor. Your feelings are more important than the food. I'm sorry that I yelled at you. And it's, I think that was also just a lesson for you. And I think you see it with your husband too. Like when I love you, I feel like more than a lot of people in the world, I don't know how to say this right, but like, I'm not going to just cut and run. You're important. And I'm going to put work into our friendship.
And that means so much. And that's really how we founded this podcast. Like I remember that was the first sentence that Caitlin really said about when we started talking about this seriously, is you said it about yourself. And you're like, I need someone who is not going to throw me under the bus or someone that's going to cut and run, because you had Fiona and you had your private practice still in California and you had a lot of moving parts and variables, and you wanted someone that wasn't going to use this as their launching pad for their next thing. And when their next bigger and better thing came along, would just sort of say, thanks for the love, toots, I'm on my way. And I didn't even think of it at the time because I am extremely loyal to a fault, to where I hang on to relationships long past their expiration date. And
you're like the dog.
There have been so many times
you're hating me, but I'm still here.
Yeah, but maybe you'll feed me again
You're
someday.
Right.
Yeah, that is exactly like, that's me. I tend to be such a doormat in relationships. And so I was so relieved to hear Caitlin say that. And I've gone back to that conversation 100 times since then, because I've gotten worried as like Caitlin's career has taken off more quickly than mine, or she's figured out different business things more quickly than mine, or has more notoriety in certain circles and is kind of becoming this rising star in the PCOS world. And I'm still, swimming around as like a medium fish in the medium pond, and feeling like, man, she could really go do whatever she wanted here. And like, am I even valuable anymore? Do I even bring anything to this? And that's, again, falling into our old habits. One of my like toxic traits is I feel like I have to be constantly demonstrating value. And if I'm not serving, if I'm not valuable, if I'm not contributing something, then I'm worthless in a relationship and I could be thrown away at any time. And I tend to think that people are looking at me from this utilitarian perspective that like I get to exist as long as I'm performing. And then when I'm not performing anymore, I get thrown away. And, welcome to the world of Instagram, because that's what it is. Like if you're not saying what someone wants to hear, you're trash.
We kind of came up in the cancel culture, like, COVID, and that idea of like, you're canceled, you don't say what everybody wants you to say, you're canceled, you don't have commentary. And this is like, again, the issue. Roe versus Wade got overturned. And I don't know if you've noticed, but Sophia and I have been silent. And there are reasons for that. And sometimes the reason is like, I can't handle the emotional backlash of what I'm going to say. And we just can't be right. Like we take one stance or the other. We're wrong to 50% of the people. And there are people that really need us to show up and serve. And if that's going to stop us from doing that in any way, then we will choose to be silent, because sometimes what you don't say is just as important as what you do say.
And you're able to serve another day because you didn't say this. Because in our culture right now, I mean, I see people constantly like, your aunt could have paid for your college, housed you while you were going through this, done all of these things for you, but you are pro-choice and she is pro-life, and she is freaking dead to you now, because it doesn't matter that she did all of these things for you that allowed you to come to this place where you are and has been generous and loving to you your entire life. Roe versus Wade got overturned. She is on one side, you're on the other. And so she's no longer in your life. And you get applauded for that. You are like, you are on the forefront. You are the best. You are the one who's making the sacrifices for the cause, because you're willing to throw your aunt away because she didn't vote a certain way or sees it differently or has experiences that you actually know nothing about that form her opinion. And yeah, that's something that's really popular in our culture and is applauded. And in fact, people like, if you don't do that, depending on where you are on the spectrum, if you aren't actively cutting people out of your life that don't agree with you, you're considered half-hearted and wishy-washy, and you are the problem.
Yeah, and
because what we
like
need
to the lower degree,
we need
of
to be
that,
as mean as possible as the people,
Right.
mean as possible towards the people that don't agree with us, because that's what changes hearts,
like
right?
that changes people's
It's
minds.
the meanness of God that brings people's hearts to repentance. Isn't that what the verse
I think
says?
it says it's the goodness.
Goodness of God.
I think that's a really compelling thing to even say too. Like, it is very popular right now to take care of yourself. Self-care, self-care, self-care. It's really popular right now to draw boundaries. I need to take care of me first. And those things are valuable, and you do need to take care of your body, especially if you're trying to get pregnant and become a mom on purpose. But there is also times where maybe you don't need that boundary, and it would be good to be generous of heart and gracious and allow someone in and to take care of them. And maybe that will come back to you in a way that's actually really redemptive and healing. And,
or it's not actually a boundary. It's you wanting to punish someone.
Right.
And you say, I'm drawing a boundary because I can't have these sorts of people in my life. And it's actually, I'm punishing these sorts of people because they're the reason that my political party doesn't have the power I want them to have.
Yeah. So interesting. So I guess, listening to this even conversation Sophia and I have had is there is value to being gracious and merciful and forgiving, and friendships are critical in a time in your life where things are really tender and difficult, like struggling with fertility and trying to get pregnant, or even once you do, and now you're pregnant and things are scary and you're still anxious, or the baby comes.
And how do you fit into the friends that you've become so close with in your infertility journey, and the only ones that understood you, and now you're the pregnant one, and they say, well, I have to have a boundary because you're pregnant and I don't want to look at you or speak to you.
Yeah. I mean, I think that if we all spent some more time regulating our nervous systems and taking care of ourselves in a way that wasn't just pampering, but was like, what's going on in my heart?
Actually maturing and growing and changing and letting God transform us into Christ.
Yeah. Then look at what type of a mother you will come out on the other end of this. You will be. And that work is just as critical as the body work, and valuing yourself in that way, valuing your friendships, valuing your marriage or your time with your partner. Like, those things are valuable and you are valuable, whether you are a mom or not. And that is something that I see a lot in the women that I serve and work with, is this idea that I'm only valuable when I do have this title, that I am a mother, and my life will not have purpose outside of that.
And it's so weird because you get told for so long that your life's purpose is to be as good as a man, do anything a man can do, break that glass ceiling, sister, get that promotion, hustle, be the CEO, be the boss mom, do all these things, get the degree, go to Europe, travel, do all this stuff while your most fertile years pass you by. And then by the time you've achieved these things and you're 40, you look back and go, oh shit. Yeah. Totally. Whoa, what was I doing? And you maybe don't regret it. You're not like, gee, I really hate my PhD and the fact that I studied abroad for 2 years. What a bummer time. Like, your life is still good and you still have things that you look back on, but it's definitely a flip from where, if we look at motherhood as honorable and as beautiful and vitally important to the progression and survival of our species, if we look at this as rooted in humanity itself, trying to become a mother is actually, I think, more important than trying to get, be the CEO or whatever, because you know what? That company has a stack of applications a mountain high, and there are other people that could fill that role and it would be just fine. Of course, they wouldn't be you and they wouldn't do it your exact way, but the company would keep trucking along, or the university would keep trucking along, or whatever it is, that would continue going. But no one can be a mommy to your baby but you. That baby can't go get a different mommy because you're off doing something else. You're all that baby's got. And so wanting to be a mother, putting your heart into that is so important and so beautiful. And in my opinion, the most empowering feminist thing that you could do.
Amen.
Toxic feminism will tell you that becoming a mom is, you know what? And even since Roe versus Wade got overturned, I'm seeing nothing but what a punishment it is to have a baby. Why are we punishing women? Like, can we stop pretending that pregnancy is punishment? I get that there are circumstances where
it's not
black and white.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, 100%. And there that exists, listeners. If you think that doesn't exist, go talk to somebody else, because it does. But since when is having a child a death sentence to joy and progression in your life? Since when is becoming a mother a punishment? That is just so toxic and insulting and coddling to women. I see it as the highest calling, as your most beautiful purpose, and your legacy. I mean, this is something, whether or not you get your PhD and you do some important research, the odds of you having a scientific discovery that changes the face of humanity forever are so much more slim than the odds of having a child that impacts generations. Because that's absolutely going to happen if you have a child. Your baby is going to impact the next generation and beyond. Whether or not you get this degree, that could become something or maybe not.
It's interesting to think.
And I'm saying this as someone with a degree, by the way. I'm not anti-education.
Who is doing work. I mean, this is something Sophia and I talk about all the time.
As a job.
Yeah, like, how do I keep doing this passion-filled work, helping women, and also spend the most amount of time I can with my children because they're only little ones? Like, Sophia and I have this as an ongoing conversation with ourselves, with our spouses, with each other. And Sophia brings up a number of times, like, there's a reason why we choose to do this, and we get childcare and we come spend time. It's a choice we make to come spend time away from our children to continue doing this work. And we're choosing fertility over things that are much easier to serve. Okay. It's much easier to teach somebody how to eat for a healthy heart. Okay. There are emotional valleys that Sophia and I trudge with people and try to help bring them out to the mountaintop. It is not easy work, not even a little bit, but it's so, so worthwhile.
It's an emotional work, and
it's worth doing.
It's worth doing. And we're really exposing ourselves to quite a bit in doing it as well, because there's controversy in any area of nutrition. I mean, Google one thing. Should I eat beans? Or like, is it okay to eat a peach? Anything.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to have people saying everything from beans are the cure to that's the reason you have heart disease to that's the reason that people die from cancer and you're doomed if you eat beans. So there's controversy in everything. But what we have so much of in the fertility world is people that are very raw emotionally and already very triggered.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you say anything that doesn't directly reflect their personal lived experience, they cannot abide.
Mm-hmm.
They cannot tolerate it, and they need to attack you and do the thing. Well, I'm making a boundary now, and like, I'm going to delete this person, and I'm going to tell everybody to cancel them, and I'm going to call them out for everything that they've said that's wrong, because that's cathartic to me. And I feel like I'm making a difference in this area where I actually feel very, very helpless. And, we deal with that on a daily basis. People get irate.
Just telling people to eat more protein to balance their blood sugar, a super simple thing. It's like, well, but then you're killing animals. This is important work.
Not even that, but like, my doctor told me that there was nothing I could do to have stopped my miscarriage. And the fact that you are saying that if people do this, then they will be able to have a baby is a lie. It is. I am crying. I cried when I read your post because you said that there was
the craziest are out there. But I do feel like
so
you
triggered.
have like a gravitational pull for them.
I actually saw that on someone else's post. It was Vagina Rehab Doctor, and she was talking about how supporting your pelvic floor muscles can do things all the way through pregnancy, including people that go into labor preterm and have cervical insufficiency and their babies aren't able to make it because they go into labor at 18 weeks or whatever it is. And her saying that there's potentially something that can be done for some people in this situation.
Somebody read it and I killed my baby.
Yeah. And they flipped out. And I was like, what happens if every time we see something that doesn't apply to our situation, we try to silence that person? What happens if our situation changes? Who will be left to help us?
No kidding. Yeah, you know.
And she flipped out on me too.
Sure.
Yeah, of course.
I'm sure. Becoming a mom on purpose, like the idea for this conversation is that infertility can have such a kind of, you feel like you're living in the shadow, right? Like you're waiting to get to the light. You're being drawn to this. I want to be a mother. I want to be pregnant. I want to have a live baby. I want to take my kid to preschool. Like that is the goal, right? It's not just pregnancy. It's becoming a mom. It's living your life's dream in that way. And it can feel like infertility is the biggest curse. There is a way to kind of flip the narrative on this and see it as a time you can actually invest in your health, your relationships, your body. And there is value to pursuing motherhood. There is value to setting your life in whatever order you can in this time while you are still waiting to do a knockout job at it the best that you can. And Sophia and I both saw that in our lives in the people we chose to marry. I mean, we both could have married people we were engaged to or almost engaged to earlier. And what a train wreck my life would be. Like, what? Yeah. So
yeah, it would be. I wouldn't be recording this podcast. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, no kidding.
I'd be on the Al-Anon podcast talking about survivors of alcoholism marriages.
Yeah. I mean,
that's a podcast I'd be on.
There was merit in our own lives to see like, okay, well, be the kind of woman the man that you want to marry will be attracted to, and look at what you're valuing and what you actually do want to marry. There's the same work that you can do in pursuing parenthood. You know, if you're somebody that really struggles with knee pain and joint pain because you carry extra weight and you want to be the mom chasing your kid on the playground and you're also struggling to conceive, there's value in building endurance and helping change your body composition in a way that's going to give you that future when you do become a mom, however that happens. And it's not wrong to pursue those things along the way and build health. If you're somebody that really struggles with anxiety, I have a person in my course right now that every time I message with her, I'm like, hey, I'm coming back to this. I really think you need to start working with a therapist or deal with your anxiety in some way, because it's like literally everything that comes up is a question that makes her really scared. You know, can I drink this drink? Is it pasteurized? Because now she's pregnant. It's like the anxiety that was in her pre-pregnancy state did not dissolve now that she's pregnant. It's actually worse. And not dealing with it is just making the problem worse. And so this is a time you've been, not that infertility is a gift, but use the time wisely and
play the hand you're dealt. Yeah,
absolutely.
And let's look at the repercussions, not just for who you will be as a mother, but what your child's life can be. Because when we look at risk factors for ADD, ADHD, autism, when we look at the children, type 2, all of these diseases that are like running rampant, and we look at what's happening in mom and dad beforehand, we see that people that are surprise pregnant and they didn't realize that they were pregnant, and they were smoking a little of this and drinking a little of that and doing a little of this and going here and doing that. And then they find out they're pregnant, and maybe old habits die hard. Maybe they're able to stop right then and there. There are times where those children go on to have healthy lives, but more often than not, that is a reason why these children struggle. And then they have children who struggle, and they have children who struggle. And you saying, I hope I'm pregnant right now, so I'm going to not eat this or drink that or smoke this or go here or do these things. I'm going to eat a lot of this and drink a lot of that and do all these things that I know supports the health of a baby and a healthy pregnancy. Well, what do you know? The genetic repercussions of that go on for generations, literally. So the fact that you are trying to become pregnant and taking care of your body in the process is huge. I mean, the biggest predictor of preterm birth is mom's lifestyle. Want to know the biggest cause of long-term disability in a child? Preterm birth. That is people that are born too early, too little, they go on to have lifelong struggles forever. And sometimes that's unavoidable. Okay. Like, again, not everybody, I went into labor at 20 weeks. Okay. I do this shit for a living. So obviously not everybody, it was able to be stopped, and I was able to carry her term, but I'm not poo-pooing moms that have NICU babies. This sometimes is just inevitable, and there isn't something that you did. But most of the time, what you're doing, how you're living, how you're eating, how you're drinking, what you're up to has a huge impact on the health of your pregnancy, and then the health of your baby, and then their lifelong health, and whether they have children and the health of those children. So just trying to conceive and putting your effort into your health and well-being to have a healthy pregnancy has huge positive repercussions for literal generations. That is something that gets missed for people that are surprise pregnant.
I think the other thing that there is like an education that they come to pregnancy with. There is a care team they've built around them. Like if you are surprise pregnant, you might just go to the OB that gave you your PAP that one time you needed a PAP, and you just stick with them because they're your OB. But like somebody who's struggled and went in and had a conversation and had a provider that didn't listen and didn't care and just offered them medication or just sent them on to a specialist and didn't give them more than 4 minutes of time. Hopefully you went, pass. I'm not going back to that doctor. I'm going to find somebody who listens. I'm going to find somebody that's curious. I'm going to find somebody that's going to ask questions and dig to the bottom of it and refer me on to a specialist when they know what type of specialist I need to go see. So you would enter pregnancy with a completely different relationship with a care provider. And that can pay rich dividends in your pregnancy, the health of your delivery, et cetera. So sometimes really, it's like, oh man, of course, we wish it was as easy as stop birth control, remove the condom, whatever your birth control habit is, and get pregnant next cycle. Of course, everybody wants that. Everybody expects that because that's what we were told in sex education. But for those of us that it takes 3 months or 6 months or 9 months or a year, that time can actually be a huge blessing.
And uncovers medical issues along the way.
Yes.
Very, very true. And beyond that, I see moms that tried to get pregnant actually really investing in the pregnancy and birth in ways that other moms don't. So I think a lot of times in our culture, birth is totally turned into this thing that we are supposed to fear and we are supposed to try to avoid the pain and feelings of at all costs. We need narcotics. We need surgery. We need a team of specialists. There's no way that our bodies have the ability to carry and birth these babies. We need lots of expert help and we need as much medicine and surgery as we can get in order to have a healthy baby. And people that have gone through the fertility process, they get kind of disillusioned by that. And they're like, well, more doctors isn't mo better. It's not, the more intervention I have isn't better. In fact, it can be worse. And so we see people that didn't necessarily want to be pregnant. Now they are. Now they have to do this birth thing that they definitely don't want to do. And so they're like, not only am I ready for this pregnancy to be over, and my doctor said there's really no reason for me to carry a pregnancy beyond 38 weeks. So I'll just go in, get induced, get the epidural. That didn't work. Now I'll just have the C-section. And now I have all my kids with C-sections and this is fine. When really what we see is it doesn't always turn out very fine. Not only is mom often deeply traumatized and baby goes through some very, very difficult things being surgically removed and having that initial separation. And then we see problems with postpartum mood disorders. We see far less rates of breastfeeding. Moms that were trying to conceive are often greatly looking forward to birth and greatly looking forward to breastfeeding. They want to have that sweet baby at their breast. They're not just like, rip it out, give it a bottle, put it in daycare. I want to live my life. They want to be with that baby and they want to have that motherhood experience. And we just see such better outcomes because these children are birthed in a way that works for their physiology, that works for their anatomy, that works for their emotional needs, because we have babies that have minds and mental health as well, and there's things that they need. And we see moms that really wanted to have a baby choosing less medical births. I also see them choosing a lot of medical births too, because you've sort of become like reliant on a medical system and you feel like you couldn't do this without them. So we do have episodes on sort of once you're pregnant, how to step away from this highly medicalized model if you want to. And
if it's safe too. Sometimes there's reason for that.
And if it's safe too.
But
if you did IUI and there's 3 babies in there, it could be definitely necessary to have lots of doctors. But but it's not something that you're trying to just run away from and get past and be like, I want to be done with this pregnancy. I want to be done with this birth. I just want to get back to my life and I'll give my baby a kiss at bedtime and put it in its bed. And then that's my life because I don't really want to be doing this.
Yeah, there is value in this time. And even if it's hard, like there is value in hard things. It was hard for me to get my degree in nutrition. Sophia too. I mean, I paid every penny of my school costs. It was hard, like I worked full time.
It was hard to graduate from my supervised practice. I almost got kicked out so many times.
I mean, things that are worthwhile can sometimes be the hardest things you ever do. I guarantee once you get to the start line of motherhood, you will see that over and over again. It's the hardest, best thing you'll ever get to do. It just is. Every day there are questions you'll have. Am I doing this right? Am I doing this well? How do I not fuck up my kid? Like all the things. And it's the hardest, best thing you'll ever do.
And such is life, truly. Like, why climb a mountain? Why get your scuba license? Why move and travel and do anything that requires effort and risk and sacrifice? This is just one of those things which, to have the beautiful life that you want, there's investment and sacrifice that comes along with it. And that's another piece that I see moms in this field. I see other moms be like, wow, you're really privileged to be able to be home with your kids. And I'm like, I'm not actually. It's a sacrifice. It's a sacrifice. It's not work. And even then, it's way easier to have a brand new car and people doing things for me and using Instant Cart for every grocery and getting Uber Eats 3 times a week and doing all these things that cost a lot more money. It's actually a sacrifice to have less money, less stuff, live in an older house or whatever. I mean, some people on this Trying to Conceive wagon, they're having children in a 1-bedroom apartment, and that's their choice. Everyone is looking at them like they're a total asshole for having wanting to have another baby when they only live in a 2-bedroom. Like, what are you doing? But it's because you are building the life that you want. And it doesn't look like the brand new car for you. And it doesn't look like all these things. And it looks like having children younger for you versus being, 40, where you've got this beautiful 401k and own 3 properties. And now you're going to try to have a kid. You're doing it younger and having to sacrifice much more along the way. And of course, there is privilege. Everyone has privilege, from the person you can think of that doesn't have any to the person that has the most. Each person enjoys certain privileges because of their life, but there is an absolute level of sacrifice that comes into motherhood. And I see women who are trying to conceive embracing that, because they are already selling their brand new car and driving something 12 years old because they need to pay for the fertility treatment. They're already carrying a bag from Target instead of from Bloomingdale's, instead of from Dolce & Gabbana, because they want to be able to send this kid they're hoping to have to school someday. And they're sacrifice. I see the sacrifice in a lot of people doing these like cosmetic procedures and getting fillers and Botox and trying to look 22 when they're 42. And women in the Trying to Conceive community, they're like, if I'm trying to detox my laundry detergent, should I be shooting my forehead with botulism? My laundry detergent that only goes in my laundry versus this poison that's
in my face,
getting shot at my skull.
Yeah.
Maybe not to this. And it is a sacrifice because you might look 40 when you're 40, and that's okay. I look 40 and I'm 35, and this is my life.
My gosh.
There is sacrifice that comes along with it. And becoming a mother on purpose, you are willingly embracing that sacrifice because you're seeing the inherent value that sacrifice brings you. Motherhood, which is the most valuable. And it's also something that gets totally crapped upon by our society.
It does. And being a mom, that's the other side of what we had talked about talking in this episode, like this promotion of being a mom boss, a CEO, like your highest calling, whatever that is. Like, I got to tell you, nothing brings me more joy than like a chubby, chunky hand. Yesterday I was working for a little bit and Bonnie, my 3-year-old, walked in. She just stood next to me and put her hand on my hand while I was typing for like 2 minutes. And I was like looking down at this little chubby hand and I was like, nothing's better than this. I'm going to stop what I'm doing and just hold her and talk to her for a few minutes. And, that like mom boss, I'm going to take over the world. Sophia and I are kind of doing that, and it's not great. Being a mom is great.
It's as wonderful as it feels to get that 100th like or whatever it is that you're after, or to publish that manual on how to talk to your doctor about lab values or whatever. It pales in comparison to my daughter giving my husband a kiss and then looking at me and giggling because she just kissed her daddy. Like, that is a freaking heart melter.
Mm-hmm.
And that is what my days are filled for. And that's what you want your days to be filled with. And that is honorable and beautiful, because look at everybody in your life. Look at everyone you've ever met. Who had a crappy mom? Yeah. How are they doing?
Right.
Not so good,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, no
And
kidding.
the ones that had good moms, where are they at?
Mm-hmm.
Much better. And I don't know what it is. I feel like almost everybody had a crappy dad, but the ones that had the crappy mom, they're the ones that are really, really scraping to get by in society. They're the ones bearing the brunt of all the problems that we're facing here. They are the ones that are in the most
And
need.
the things that become like hard in motherhood that could potentially become the things that make you really frustrated with your spouse or resent a family member or a friend, the things where you're like, man, I go to work and like my boobs hurt because it's time for my son to feed and I need to pump now. Or I go to work and all I can think about is now it's 12:30 and somebody's about to go down for a nap. Like I can't escape motherhood. Like I am biologically, I don't know how this works, especially with like some sense of understanding of the spiritual realm. Like I can know my baby is crying when I am not in earshot of my baby, and it has nothing to do with letdown. Like there is a connection that a mother has with the child, and it is incredibly powerful. And you can flip the coin on this. You can be like, man, my husband leaves the house and he never thinks about making sure the nanny has this and do the kids have this and what appointments do we have today. And he's not thinking about what we're going to feed him tomorrow and making sure the groceries are in the house and all these things. Women are designed in a way to do really, really well. Okay. You could become incredibly resentful that your partner, spouse, or mother-in-law who comes and helps you doesn't have that same awareness. Or you could look at that when you become a mom and go like, wow, I was designed to do this. And a mom that's functioning on all cylinders, or a mom that's sick and in bed, like when my husband's sick and in bed, the household doesn't fall apart. Children's needs are met, la, la, la. When mommy's sick in bed, well, first of all, when mommy's sick, she's not usually in bed. Let's be real. But like things just start dropping. Balls are everywhere on the floor. Moms were created in a way, like women were created to be moms. And in fact, I read this book recently, the Hormone Repair Manual by Laura Briden. It's basically about like entering perimenopause and menopause. And she talks about something that I'm sure she didn't coin. It's like very philosophical maybe, but it's called the grandmother theory. And the idea that men's fertility doesn't turn off necessarily with age, but women's do. And there's a reason for that, because the people in hunter-gatherer villages that gather the most food are the grandmother, no longer fertility aged women. They are the ones kicking butt. They're bringing in more food per person than the 25-year-old man or the 18-year-old man. Okay. Because that mom knows how to get shit done, and she knows mouths need to be fed, and she will work to do it. And if she was still childbearing, she would not have the resources physically to breastfeed a baby, take care of her 15-year-old, and also go gather as much food. Like the continuance of species relies on really good moms that also become grandmothers. So valuing this role and not, approaching it as I'm going to value my body, my mental health, my soul, my spiritual health in this process of trying to conceive, because I'm going to become a mom on purpose. This is not going to be an accident for us. This is not going to be a surprise. That is valuable in so many levels.
Very, very beautiful, Caitlin. I could not agree more. And we're not saying this so that you feel jealous that you're not a mom yet. We're saying this because what you're doing is important and amazing and valuable. And you know what? Good for you that you're pouring your vacation fund into getting supplements and organic food and everything like that. Freaking good for you. That is going to serve our society as a whole. That is going to serve your community, your family, generations to come, more than your Hawaiian vacation, girlfriend. And people are going to tell you you're dumb for that because you do you and you get yours and whatever. But what you are doing is it's a sacrifice, and it is so valuable and so important and so freaking necessary. I don't know why our culture makes it seem like you have to be pregnant by surprise, otherwise you're dumb. I even see women in this community who were desperately trying to conceive, and then they make their Facebook announcement and they're like, whoops, look who wasn't social distancing. And they make it seem like this was some big accident, surprise, shock, which, listen, when you're trying to conceive, you can absolutely be shocked that it worked. But like, then portraying to the world that you weren't trying, this wasn't on your radar. It was just a whoopsie baby because we were just having so much hot sex, and that gets praised. But when you're like, for this long awaited child that I've worked so hard for, that's when people are like, don't you know the foster system is really overrun? You know, our planet actually has more people than it can sustain, and blah, 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 and want to tear you down because you made this deliberate choice to become a mother and to have a child that you get to care for from conception, before conception.
It's beautiful.
It is valuable. It is important. It's beautiful. I am here for it. I love it. It's why I hire a nanny to take care of my kid. It's why my husband is probably lost on the way to swim lessons right now, because my kid is in swim lessons, and we're doing infant swim rescue, which you have to go every day. So we've gone to this person's house for swim lessons every day. And just now my husband still popped in saying, I need directions. I need the address. And he was the one who physically drove there each day too. I get it when you're like the passenger and you're sort of like texting and chilling. You maybe didn't remember what the name of the street was that you made that left on or whatever. But like, I'm like, bro, get it together, man. Come on.
This is another one of those kind of behind the scenes. Like, we paused the episode because we needed to find an address and make sure, like, towels. And this is just like literally proving
she had her snack and her towel. And
moms were made to do this, and it's valuable what you're doing. And it's okay if your husband's the good cook in the family and you enjoy mowing the lawn. It's okay to have those things, but you were made to like be the keeper of your home and know this shit. And you're the one that
you are going to. It's the truth. And biologically, when you grow and birth a child, your connection to that child and that child's connection to you, it's not just a caregiver thing. It's not just like, oh, we can hand this baby over to anyone, and as long as they're there consistently, this baby's going to be okay. That isn't true. They know your body. They know you. And you are the mommy. They don't even understand. Babies don't even understand that you're two different people. They think that you're the same organism. It takes a long time for them to start to build that autonomy. And it's just the way it goes in being a mom. It's a sacrifice, but you want to make that sacrifice, and you are making that sacrifice. That was one of the biggest things when I was in labor with my 18-month-old now, is that I was scared. I can't be a mom. I kept saying that, like, I'm not ready. I can't be a mom. And my midwife said, Sophia, you are a mom. Look how you've cared for this baby since, before she was even conceived. And that is you, sister. You are a mom in your heart, and you are a mom. That's who you are. And you're becoming, just like I'm still becoming a mom all the time. I've never been a mom to a 2-year-old, a 5-year-old, a 9-year-old, a 12-year-old. I've never done this. I'm still becoming every day. You are still becoming every day because you haven't reached. It's never done. It's like a Jedi.
You are always becoming a mom. You are always becoming a better version of a mom. I mean, it's just so true. And I just want to pause and say, we celebrate you today, just like we're celebrating our 2-year anniversary. We celebrate the fact that you're showing up, that you're listening to this podcast, that you're trying to make changes in your kitchen, that you're trying to make changes to your lifestyle, that you're prioritizing better sleep instead of binging Netflix at night, that you're taking time away from screens before bed, like all the things that do feel like a sacrifice and feel counter to our modern culture. It's okay. And slowing down is good. And we just are here for it. And we're here to cheer you on. And I have a really fun idea. You can tell me if it's a stupid idea, Sophia.
Let's hear it.
So we could do a Celebrate With Us podcast anniversary, and in a way to like have a win-win, write us a review or rating, or if you've already done that, screenshot it and send it to us. And we'll pick one winner that can come on and be a part of an episode with us.
I love it. I love it. I love
Whether
it.
you're
I love
still
it.
trying
I
to
love it. I love
conceive,
it.
or you're pregnant, or you already are a mom, you've
Okay,
been
so
with us from the
say
beginning.
that again. Say what they need
So
to do again.
You need to rate and review the podcast. Honest review. It can be completely honest, and we still might choose you if you give us a 3-star, but we like 5
You're
stars.
like, this is a good podcast, but Sophia's voice makes me want to puke.
So write an honest
Don't say
rating
that. Hey,
or
don't be
review.
mean to me.
And screenshot it and send it to us in our Instagram for the Food Freedom Fertility Instagram account that we never check. We'll check it. You have until the end of July.
We never check it.
Somebody checks it for us, and we're going to get better at that. That's one part of the things we're working on for the new year.
That's why we do seasons, y'all. We can't do it all at once.
So rate, review, screenshot, send it in DM to the Instagram Food Freedom Fertility. No dots, no spaces, no nothing. And we will pick one winner at random, or maybe if somebody makes us laugh the most, or, who knows. And
as the spirit wills, we'll
choose. And you can come on and be a part of this. We can either do the episode related to your journey and your needs, or we could pick a topic and you can just be along for the ride and listen.
Or you can pick the topic and you can say, I want to talk about
X, Y, and Z.
Various fertility treatments and which house they would be at Hogwarts.
And
Caitlin's like, shut the hell up about Hogwarts.
Except for that, today I'm hoping I can find somebody to emergency babysit tonight so that I can go watch the first Harry Potter at the IMAX at the Children's Museum in town.
Oh, so many reasons sometimes I think that that's the best Harry Potter. And it isn't empirically. It's not the best of the movies, but I love it at the same time because it's this silliness of their childhood and Harry's first Christmas where he actually gets a gift and and he's never had money in his life, and here he can buy chocolates for his first friend. And oh my God, okay, I'm sorry, we're going too far.
So you get to decide, and we'll bring you on, and you can be a part of our episode, and maybe that'll be our kickoff episode for our next season. How about that?
I love this. All right. I think that's a great place for us to segue into doing a girl.
I have one. Can I go first today?
Caitlin, I want to hear it.
I didn't even have one. You just blew me out of the water.
Yours was about what a good secret keeper you are.
I actually am a good secret keeper.
You were tooting your own horn.
Okay. Well, this is something, it's more like becoming a mom type of a girl. There is just inherently something about being a mom where you always feel like you're failing. And you want your children to be I've never cared about my kids being crawling first, milestones, all these things. I want them to be thankful. I want them to be happy. I want them to communicate kindly. If they're a janitor and they have those skills, they'll be happy. If they discover, some scientific thing, or they're a dietitian or a nurse, they'll be happy. Any end of the spectrum, you're thankful, you're kind, you can communicate well, kindly. That's what I care about. And yet I do find myself falling into some of the things that I experienced in my childhood. And I see it a lot in my husband too. Do this because I told you so. I'm the authority. You just need to follow me. Spank, 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 yada, yada, yada. And oftentimes you're directing a behavior versus really shepherding your child's heart in a certain direction. And I have gotten really good at parenting the way that I think is right to parent my own children in my own home and in most social circumstances. But as soon as we get to the church group and I'm around how they parent, it's almost it's not that I could parent completely differently, but I'm much more critical of my parenting in that situation. And I read this quote the other day. I don't even know what account I saw it on. And I've definitely Caitlin'd it up in my own head, my thoughts about it. But essentially it said, you parent in a way because you want to be approved to God in your parenting, not because the person at church thinks you need to do it this way, or the gentle parenting neighbor friend thinks you need to do it this way, or society thinks you need to do it this way. Your responsibility as a parent is to your children, really, and to God. How are you doing it?
Mm.
And it was really freeing for me to be like, spanking doesn't work for my children and it doesn't work for me. And so we're doing it differently. And that's like flying in the face of everything I was brought up with and saw and so much. And it was like, okay, I gave myself permission to be the parent that I need to be for my children in whatever situation I'm in. It was really like kind of humbling and a really big growing moment for me. And I was kind of reflecting on that.
God help you if it does work for your children. That's the people that are really hurting these days. That's like, you're going to be, talk about cancel culture. Stakes are even higher there. Like if you are someone who spanks your kid and that does work for you, other people in the world will burn you alive, literally. Like they'll try to take your children and kill you. Like, yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting, parenting, like being on this side of this journey. Like there are more days that I have questions than answers, and you just do the best that you can. But it was such a great growing moment for me to be like, you know, there are a lot of things that I just don't give a shit what people think about me. And apparently with children, this is a little bit different because you want them to act a certain way in public. You want them to be a certain way. You want them. And like, sometimes the fact of the matter is like, you just have a 2-year-old. They're not going to do it perfectly, and expecting them to do it perfectly is unrealistic. And like,
stresses everybody out.
Maybe expecting them to do it perfectly is borderline abusive, no matter what you're doing. Like just like having that expectation over them.
We had popcorn in the living room for a snack, and my husband was like wanting her to pick up every little bit that she dropped. Oh, you dropped a piece. Turn around. See it? Do you see it? You dropped a piece. Pick that piece up. I'm like, bro, she's won. Like, and it's popcorn. It's not like it's like chocolate milk that we're sloshing on the couch cushions. Like it's a popcorn kernel. Like it can all get picked up later. And then what do you know? She couldn't enjoy the movie because every other second he was like making her have to look for popcorn.
Oh my gosh. GJ the other day, we were teaching Seamus's eating, and I'm a little bit more baby-led weaning than I am like shove a spoonful of things in his mouth. And so it's messy and there's shit everywhere and he doesn't eat very much, and that's okay. My husband, he just can't figure it out. So he was watching the kids the other day. I don't mean it watching. He had the children. I was doing something else, and I came back and he was like, hey, I fed Seamus lunch today and he did really well. I didn't let him hold the spoon at all. And I mashed it up more than you're mashing it up. And I just like spoon in the mouth. And he ate so much. And I was like, he feels like this is a really big win. I'm going to let him celebrate the win. And then sometime I'm going to talk to him about how like there's a lot of really good learning in him with his pincer grasp, trying to grab things, put things in his mouth. And the mess is actually good, even though to you, it like pisses you off because it's one more thing to clean, but like, it's great. And by the way, having a bath is his favorite thing in the world to do right now. Like, by what standard has this been better? By yours. Is this better in the long run for everything? But whatever, I'm going to celebrate the win with you.
So, all right. You're finding confidence in your parenting decisions. Yeah, girl. My girl is I have enrolled my daughter in infant swim rescue, which is it's scary. It's the sort, for those of you that don't know, it's kind of like children's survival swim. The number one cause of death for children under 4 is drowning. And a lot of times it's not what we think about, which is like my kid fell in the ocean or a pool. It's something like bowl, we are
the tub that didn't get emptied.
Well, maybe not like the dog bowl, but like the tub that didn't yet get emptied or is emptying and you left for a moment, or a bucket, or you're somewhere else that isn't your house and you had no idea that this park had a drainage ditch down this way, or that these people had a kiddie pool that they inflated and they're adjacent to the park and they don't have a fence in their yard and your kid wandered over there. And it's these things where you just can't be in control of water around your child at all times, because the things like I just said, they exist. And so it's teaching your kid how to orient themselves if they were to be submerged. And at the age that my kid is, they teach them swim, float, swim, which is like you fall in or you get in the water, your mouth is closed, your eyes are open, you're reaching with your hands and kicking, trying to find a step, the shore, an edge, a railing, whatever you can find. And when you need to breathe, you roll onto your back and you breathe, because when kids are really little, like under 4 years old, their head is so much weight of their body that trying to doggy paddle and keep their head above water is almost impossible and is incredibly exhausting. So they teach them, you kick and paddle with your hands out and your eyes open and your mouth closed, not breathing. And when you need to breathe, you roll on your back and you breathe and rest. And then you try again to find an edge or to find a person or whatever. And the way that they do it is they just get in the water with your kid, and they it's one-on-one with an instructor the whole time. And but you go every single day, 5 days a week for 6 weeks. And it's only a 10-minute lesson each time. And they put your kid in the water and make them do these skills repeatedly. And the list of testimonials is incredible. One of my neighbors, she took her kid to the same swim class, and they were only like 2 weeks into the training. It's a 6-week training. And the kid actually fell into water and used the skill to roll onto his back and survived. Yeah. And so it's one of those things that, like, as a mom, I've just had a constant dread about something like this happening to my daughter, because it happens all the time. I live in Southern California. We're near the ocean. People have pools. And even though I am very cautious about this and I'm around her, I'm going to have a second baby soon. Right. And there will be times when for 90 seconds, even that quickly, I'm looking at my other baby and not at my daughter, and she could wander off and find water, because kids love water. And they don't understand that they can't swim. Especially if you use like water wings and puddle jumpers and stuff like that, they think they can. And so they just get right in. And so I'm doing this with her. It's very stressful. She doesn't like it. She doesn't like it. And it's also, the same as like one of those parenting things where, like, making your kid happy all the time and trying to do things so that they don't cry and they don't feel upset, or they never feel scared, or they never feel worried. The temptation is real to do that as a mom, to just try to keep the peace and keep everyone happy. But that's not what helps your kids grow. That's not what prepares your kids for independence. That's not what prepares your kids for life
or safety.
And so, or safety. Yeah. And so we're doing this thing where the stakes are so high, and I would rather her cry for 10 minutes a day than be silent for a lifetime because she fell into water. And so we're doing it. We're like a week in. The first episode, oh my God, the first lesson, she cried the whole time and I cried the whole time, because it was just so hard to hear her. No, no. But she's completely safe. She's completely cared for. This person does this all the time. And this is necessary. It's the struggle of learning. And so we're doing it. And we're about a week in. Today is lesson 4. And you go 5 days a week. So we're doing these swim lessons. And I feel really good as a mom that and it's a sacrifice. The lessons are expensive. And it's every day, to take an hour out of every day to take her to the lesson, prepare her for the lesson, do the lesson, rest from the lesson, drive home from the lesson, dry off, like all the stuff. It's a sacrifice to do that every day, but we're doing it. And pretty soon she's going to be a great little swimmer, and she'll be able to enjoy a lifetime of safe play in the water.
Amazing. Good for you, Mama. Yeah, girl.
Thank you. It's hard, but it's worth it.
Worth it. Well, this has been another episode and season of Food Freedom and Fertility and year. My gosh, it's our anniversary. Yeah. Leave a rating and review. Take a screenshot, send it to our Instagram. We will choose a winner. We will record an episode, and it will be awesome. I'm really looking forward to that. It sounds like just so much fun. So,
yeah, I can't wait. I hope that it's you.
We just love you. We're here for you. So we'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening.